X-Men are coming to the MCU and are currently going through a reboot of sorts in Marvel Comics. A lot of fans are asking what might show up from master writer Jonathan Hickman's newer X books into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that's what we're going over here. It's another edition of Fan Chats Live here at the Den of Nerds. We do it for the fans. Hello, all of you beautiful nerds from around the world. Welcome one and all to another edition of Fan Chats Live here on the Den of Nerds. This is actually a pretty selfish one, guys. I'll be completely honest with you guys. I just really want to talk about the X-Men. I need to talk about the Jonathan Hickman X-Men, the MCU, how it could all tie together. So the way that we're going to do this is what I wanted to do. I'm going to talk about what we can expect to be brought into the MCU from Jonathan Hickman's X-Men, but we're going to keep it non-spoilery. Non-spoilery when I'm talking about it, okay? And then when we get into spoilers, that'll be in Q&A. So if you're watching this video on the replay, and you're like, oh, I haven't checked out any of Jonathan Hickman's X-Men stuff, don't worry. We'll keep it spoiler-free at the beginning of this video, and then we will get into some spoilers after that. What's up, chat? I see you guys in here. How you guys doing? I just felt like doing a live stream and talking about the X-Men today, so that's kind of where I'm at with it. Hey, can you guys do me a favor in chat? Can you obviously drop a like on this video, but can you please share this stream out on Twitter and tag the Den of Nerds? That would be awesome because there's just weird stuff that goes on when I try to do that. I don't know. It's just hard for me to share it like that. But yeah, so we're going to get into all of this exciting stuff. Let me know in chat, too. Are you guys reading the Jonathan Hickman X-Men books right now? Are you guys checking out House of X, Powers of 10? You guys let me know. Are you reading that stuff? Because it's amazing right now. I just caught up last night. I was a couple issues behind. What's up, Ryan H., executive producer in the building. We got to give him mod. Add him to the moderators. Okay, cool. All right. I know Ryan's reading the X-Men because we've been talking about that, actually, he and I. So, let's start. Let's get into this. We'll get into this a little bit as more and more people come in here. We'll just keep it rocking. So, first of all, I just want to say again for everybody, we're not going to do spoilers at the beginning part here. I'm just going to talk about conceptually what we want to bring in from the X-Men, the Jonathan Hickman X-Men stuff into the MCU. Because there's a lot of great stuff in there. There's a lot of great stuff to mine from Jonathan Hickman's stuff, okay? So, ooh, nice. Okay, cool. Okay, so here's where we go. I've been thinking a lot about how do you translate this stuff? What is the bedrock of an X-Men story? What is the bedrock of these kind of stories? How do these work? And why has Jonathan Hickman's run been so successful to start out with? And just so you guys know, we don't know exactly how successful this run is yet, right? We're barely getting like the actual sales numbers in for everybody. And if you've been following comics for a long time, you should know how all of this stuff works. Like we have to wait and see what the official numbers are from Diamond, and then from there we have to see, well, how are the actual shops selling this stuff? There's a lot of different levels to it. But if you simply look at how they are running out of print for this stuff and how the sales of these copies are on things like eBay and stuff like that, man, really good stuff. Really good stuff. It really seems like Hickman's X-Men is a big success for Marvel, which is awesome because Marvel Comics really needed a pretty good, they needed some help, let's be honest. Yeah. Oh, wow. Comixology is having a 50% off all Marvel right now. Wow. Yeah, that's great. I love reading on Comixology myself. I like digital. I don't know. First of all, I like not having to go to the shop, but I also like not having to wait for stuff to be reprinted. Like if you go out right now and you try to find Immortal Hulk anywhere, it's like you can't find Immortal Hulk anywhere really right now in comics because that book's crushing it right now and its secondary market value is really good. Same thing's going on with Hickman stuff. So I would recommend reading it on Comixology. It's really good stuff. But let's get into some of this stuff. So one of the main things that I wanted to talk about here, the bedrock for, I think, the X-Men stories, and this is an element that Hickman plays with very effectively in his new run. And this would all have to do with the Professor X Magneto relationship, Charles and Eric. This relationship is foundational to great X-Men stories. I think it's been used very successfully by Fox in a lot of their films. And I think that if and when the X-Men are brought into the MCU, this relationship has to be the bedrock of how these movies and how these characters relate to audiences. I don't know how many of you guys know about this, but the two characters of Professor X and Magneto actually represent two people from the civil rights movement, okay? They actually represent Malcolm X and Dr. King. So Charles Xavier is Dr. King, and Magneto is Malcolm X. And one of the key reasons that I think this relationship is so foundational to the X-Men and it will be so important for the MCU to do is because we can relate to Magneto. Like, we can see where Magneto is coming from, but we can also pretty immediately and effectively know that Professor X, or Charles, is actually the hero. He's actually correct in that his goals, right? So he's actually doing it the right way while Magneto's doing it the wrong way, but we can understand it. And what's really important is both of those characters can actually, like, they understand each other too. That's what's really beautiful about the relationship. Like, Magneto understands Charles. Like, Eric understands him, but he also just disagrees. They both want the same thing. They just disagree about how to get it, how to go there, right? So I think that is just so important, and it's equally important that Charles understand Eric, because that's just narratively speaking, that's beautiful stuff, because it allows these two villains, or these two polar opposites within the story, the protagonist and the antagonist, to really have a lot of chemistry together, history together. They see eye to eye in a lot, and it's great. It's great for the audience, and this is one of the things that Hickman does so successfully in his run. Sorry about bouncing the camera all around there. That was crazy. But this is literally one of the things that he does so effectively, is he brings in that thread, which feels really familiar, but he does it in a very new way. And like I said, I'm not going to give away spoilers at the beginning part here. We will probably get into some stuff in a second here. And Maverick Pilgrim, I totally see your super chat. I'm going to save that, brother, for once I start going into Q&A. But must we differentiate between X-Men and mutants? We'll get into that in a second. Let me just say this. Let me just put this out there. I'll freak out if they don't call the X-Men X-Men. I'm just going to say that. Let's put that to bed. Let's come back to that later. I will freak out if they don't call the X-Men X-Men. But anyway, I was thinking that relationship between Professor X and Magneto is so key. Now, what's interesting is directly tied into that is this idea of it having to do with the civil rights movement. So the idea here is that the mutants, and by the way, if you actually go back and study this, the creators of the X-Men books did not intentionally, see you, Tara, thanks for hanging. They did not intentionally create a allegory for civil rights. They didn't do that intentionally at first, but then once they realized that it was so clearly a great allegory for that, they really played around with it a lot. And this is something we could talk about in great length and in great detail, because currently, given the political climate and where we're at right now, it is going to be very interesting to bring the X-Men to the silver screen, simply because, like, their past and their history, and the thing that I think people love about them is steeped in political allegory, right? More than anything, the X-Men have been that. They have been that allegory for it. And the conflict between mutants and humans, and the fact that humans fear and in a lot of ways hate mutants, is so important. That has to translate. That has to come over. And I know there's a lot of talk right now about how they might update the way that is explained. There's been some time, like I heard John Campea talk about how it would be interesting if, instead of being of Jewish descent and being someone that was in those camps in Nazi Germany, that it would be interesting if Magneto was literally African American and it had something like that going on. Like, I don't know if that is exactly the way they should do it, but it's worth considering that they could update that and do a different version of that. But either way, humanity has to despise and fear by and large the mutants, and the conflict between mutants and humans has to be there. These are like the familiar threads, and Hickman is doing some really interesting stuff with how he's bringing that, how he's updating that to the channel. What's up, Nadia? I see you. It's really, really cool stuff. So that's a very important part of the formula as well, bringing that in there. I would also say, and this is something that I really want to get into, is the fact that Hickman uses the powers that the mutants have, and really, he uses the very, like, the Omega level powers, okay? The crazy level powers that the mutants have. Because the one thing that I think we need to do in the MCU, as I read, what's going on in the MCU, I think narratively, if there's some really, really powerful mutants, like, they have to be freakishly powerful. And really, because that is the way to instill the fear that I think people will have. So I think there's two ways to sort of bring in that fear and that conflict between humans and mutants, right? And a really good way to do that is using the incredible powers that these characters have. And a couple of the things that I was thinking about was, wouldn't it be interesting if Charles Xavier, and I've seen people talk about this on Reddit and different places online, wouldn't it be interesting if Xavier had hidden the existence of mutants from most humans? Like, we'll talk about things like the Fantastic Four, right? And right now, there's a big rumor out there that the Fantastic Four is going to be brought into the MCU in this interesting way where they existed back in the day, in the 60s, in the 70s, but then they were trapped. They were trapped in the quantum realm, and so they might come out and be sort of a fish out of water because they're used to the 60s and 70s, and now it's like 50, 60 years later, right? And that will be a way to sort of keep that 60s vibe, and the 70s vibe of the Fantastic Four, and yet modernize it and bring it into the modern day. Now, you can't do that again with the X-Men. We don't even know if that's what they're going to do with the Fantastic Four. But there has to be a way to either introduce the mutant phenomenon or introduce the idea that the mutants had been around for a long time, and Xavier had literally hidden the mutants from humanity for a long, long time, okay? Now, what I mean here, the main thing that I'm trying to get across here is Hickman does an incredible job of utilizing the powers of the X-Men as very powerful narrative devices. He's able to use things like time travel, resurrection, immortality. He's able to use these things in a very interesting way. And so as I read Powers of X and House of X, and I think any like X-Men fan, it's just there's the thing that the X-Men have that I don't think like the Avengers have is pretty much like the problem with this unabated power, okay? So this is an issue for them, and whether it's Cable slipping through time, whether it's Cable fighting Apocalypse and trying to defeat him through time, whether it's going to the Age of Apocalypse universe where Apocalypse wins, whether it's Days of Future Past, whether it's any of these things, there is this idea that the incredible power that these characters have is influencing the way that their stories are happening. And I think that that's so clutch and so important. And so really when I think about like what's the MCU going to bring from the Jonathan Hickman X-Men runs into the MCU, it's not so much that they'll actually bring in like the idea of Xavier wearing a Cerebro, walking around with Cerebro. It's not so much the idea of them having a sovereign land with Krakoa, although they could. But really, I think the most important lessons to learn from the brilliant, and I do mean absolutely brilliant storyteller that is Jonathan Hickman, is how to take these things that are the essential X-Men. When you boil the X-Men down to like what makes the X-Men, I think that is what it is. You have to start with a conflict between mutants and humanity. Mutant and humanity have to have a problem. I think the way you do that is through them having inconceivable and unbelievable power. This is what causes the fear. And as it starts to accelerate, as more and more mutants are coming up and popping up, like humanity's like, whoa, this is a big issue. This is a big issue, right? And then because of that hatred and that conflict, you need these characters of Magneto and Charles. You need these two characters to both want the same thing, but to be going about it different ways. And I think if you just bring in those threads, you can do something really, really interesting with it that's very MCU. Now, the one thing that we know about the MCU right now is that the world is shaken up. Like, the world is shaken up after the events of the blip, after all of that. Like, people are on edge, right? So if right then, when things are crazy, like, the way I was thinking about it in my head was, I was like, whoa, it would be absolutely nuts if, as this is happening, it is revealed that these enhanced people had been around for a long, long time, and maybe the fact that whatever happened when Thanos was on Earth, that they did not get involved, right? They purposely did not get involved, and they had their existence even from Thanos, just out of self-preservation. Like, I feel like humans might feel a certain type of way and be like, yo, that's really messed up. You know what I mean? But conversely, too, there could be, just in the wake of the blip and looking for heroes, some more mutants and stuff coming in. Now, another thing that I wanted to mention here was Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch could be very important to driving a wedge between the Avengers and the mutants, because I believe what will happen is we're going to start to understand that Scarlet Witch is mutated, and that even though she maybe got some power, or maybe the stone unlocked her power, that the mutation she has is accelerating her power to a crazy, crazy degree, right? And so when they explain that, and if they explain that, and they use the Scarlet Witch character and sort of pay shades and homage to House of M, and they do something like that with the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, it could be very effective. Peace out, C-Mob. It could be very effective for bringing in that conflict between both the Avengers and the mutants, and humankind and the mutants. And I really believe that that will be a big thing moving forward. You know what I mean? We will definitely see that moving forward. So that's just kind of some of my ideas, guys, as I was getting into the X-Men stuff, and there was a pretty light news day today. So I was like, yo, you know what I want to do? I want to get on and live stream and talk about the X-Men coming in to the MCU. And so now, guys, let's just open it up to Q&A. And if you're watching this on the replay, this is where we will get a little bit spoilery. This is where we will maybe get into some of the details of Jonathan Hickman's run and some of the stuff that I'm absolutely loving. But I welcome you to drop your questions into the chat. Of course, if you have a super chat, it helps the channel out, supports the channel. I will answer every single super chat that comes in. If you got some loot, helps out. If you don't have any loot, don't worry about it. Just drop your questions in. I'll answer as many questions as I can into the chat. But let's talk, man. Let's talk X-Men. Let's talk Marvel. Let's talk anything and everything that's going on in nerdy pop culture right now. And I tell you what, I will start with Maverick Pilgrim's super chat here. Must we differentiate between X-Men and mutants? Absolutely. But I think so. For me, I think that you introduce mutants. Unless they go the route where Charles Xavier was hiding them from the world, which they could literally do, which would be just so mind-blowing to me, but a very interesting way for them to do it. Unless they go that route, then yeah, you need to introduce mutants first and then X-Men. And I think it's equally important that you introduce the Brotherhood of Mutants with the X-Men, right? So I really do believe that that's really, really important. Now, Feige spoke to at San Diego Comic-Con when he said mutants. He uses mutants and X-Men pretty interchangeably there. And I think what they'll do is they'll probably just brand it as like Marvel's X-Men, right? Because they just want to remind everybody this is Marvel's. Like, this is Marvel's version of these characters and doing this, right? But I do think, yeah, it'll be important because there are mutants that don't rock with the X-Men. You know what I mean? There are mutants that don't rock with the Brotherhood of Mutants. There are just all kinds of mutants out there, right? So, yeah, it would be hella interesting to see that. And I do think you need to differentiate. Let's see here. I believe that the mutants were already introduced since Quicksilver and Scarlet appeared, since the Mind Stone woke up something that already was in them, and they could have an X gene. Fan World says that. Yeah, and that's something that I sort of agree with, too. I think that that's completely possible. Like, it's totally possible that is the way they'll do it, that the Infinity Stones accelerated the mutation, and perhaps the blips and all the craziness that was going on with the Infinity Stones accelerated worldwide how the mutations happen. I think that would be very effective. Let's see here. OG Fortified asks, Josh, any new information on the Inhumans? I assume you mean any new information beyond the show we did yesterday? And no, there's no updates on that. And that's just a rumor. Like, you know what I mean? We talked about it yesterday. It was a rumor. I think it's really cool. I'm really interested in how that would work, too, because the Inhumans and the Mutants actually have a war at one point in the comic books, too. And they don't always get along. So that would be really interesting to see. But no new information on that. Will they retcon Magneto as Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver's dad? Tim Hayter asks. That's actually really cool. That's a really interesting question. I don't know. I think they totally could. They totally could. I think it could be very effective. Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I would personally like it, like as a big comic book fan. It really depends on. I don't know. There's just a lot. It's going to be interesting to see how they do this because there's a lot of things. Like, for instance, I love Avengers vs. X-Men. I think it's like good comic book fun. It's a really nice run. But the problem is going to that in the future is going to be weird because it won't be Captain America, Steve Rogers, right? It won't be Tony Stark, Iron Man. It'll be different Avengers versus the X-Men. So, like, ultimately it sucks because I really wish that all this had happened sooner and we could have gotten Hugh Jackman's Wolverine versus Robert Downey Jr.'s, Iron Man. That would have been really cool. But, yeah, a lot of questions with how this will all go down. Let's see here. We got a super chat coming in from Ramon. The New Age. Will X-Men and Inhumans be set up in Eternals? So I believe, and what it sort of pointed to yesterday, the report that we talked about yesterday, is that the Inhumans will indeed be set up in the Eternals movie. Something to do with the Celestials and how all that works. Because what's really weird is, depending on how they do this, the Eternals are kind of like the Inhumans. So the whole idea here is that the Celestials are messing with primitive early man, okay? And they were doing this with a lot of different planets and all sorts of weird things where they're doing that, right? And then there's this character, the High Evolutionary. Now, after the Celestials leave, the High Evolutionary, as far as I understand it, he remains on Earth and he's still constantly manipulating with these people, right? And every once in a while, the Celestials will come and they sort of check in with the High Evolutionary, and they're like, how are things going or whatever, right? So if the Eternals are gods made from early humankind, they're actually really similar to what the Inhumans are. The Inhumans are very similar, except that Inhuman gene doesn't activate until you have the Terrigen Mist. And so they're sort of like stealthily, there's a lot of Inhumans on the planet, but their culture is such that you have to earn the right to go through Terrigenesis. So, yeah, they're actually very similar, so I could see both of them being set up, actually. Let's see here. What do you think about the upcoming Hulu Ghost Rider show? I don't know much about it. I don't even know if it's confirmed, to be honest with you. I mean, we've heard a lot about it. I do expect it to actually happen. I watched a little bit of the Ghost Rider on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I thought it was all right. Cool. But that show for me, look, I don't really think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is that great. And I just really didn't like a lot of what they did with the Inhumans in that show, actually. And so I got kind of turned off from that show. So even the Ghost Rider stuff that's in there that I hear is awesome, I've only seen a little bit of it. So I don't know. I'm probably not going to watch it on Hulu. Just being real, like, unless I get that bundle with Disney Plus and, the ESPN and the Hulu thing, I don't really see myself spending a lot of time on Hulu, to be honest with you. I want to see the 90s cartoon X-Men team in the MCU. Richard. Yeah, no, man. I feel you. What do I think about Shia LaBeouf? I'm telling you, man, I'm still on that train with Shia LaBeouf being Mark Spector. I think that would be both hilarious and amazing. That would be really, really great. I did see some people say that Adam Driver could be a really good Moon Knight. And that's true, but Adam Driver is like big-time movie star at this point. He's doing a lot of crazy stuff in film, so I don't know if he would join the MCU at all. And if he did, I don't know if he'd want to do a show. You know what I mean? Like, are you guys following some of the stuff that Dave Bautista is saying online? Because Dave Bautista is kind of saying he wants like a Clayface movie, not only in the DC universe, but he wants a standalone movie. So he's upset, I guess, a little bit that Marvel doesn't want or view Drax or him as good enough to be in a solo movie. And so he wants a solo movie. Look, that's just a movie star thing. As a movie star, of course you want a solo movie. Like, of course you want your movie to come out first. That's just the way that it is. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Adam Driver or even some of these actors, selling them on a show is tough. Like, even Ewan McGregor in the Obi-Wan show. I'm pretty sure the only reason he's doing it is because, and this was reported, that he'll get to be behind the camera on some of it. So he'll learn the biz, he'll learn how to direct and shoot things and, work in that side. And, being back in the Disney family, playing Obi-Wan again, and also being able to shoot stuff and learn is part of the benefit for him. So let's see here. Ryan Smith, we got a super chat coming in. Could Terrigen crystals from egos spreading in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 set up the Inhumans? Oh, I like that a lot. I don't think those things are the same, though. I don't think that's Terrigen Mist that Ego is dropping out. I think he's literally trying to just take over everything. If I'm understanding that film correctly, he wants like a sort of singularity where he is everything. I think that's kind of what he's doing in that movie. But yeah, I mean, that could happen. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the Terrigen Mist, particularly with the Miss Marvel character, right? Like Miss Marvel, there's this moment where all this Terrigen bomb goes off after Infinity. It actually does happen, pardon me, in response to a Thanos invasion, and when he comes to Adelon, and like Black Bolt just sets off the Terrigen bombs, right? Now, that leads to a lot of different people and Inhumans popping up on the planet, one of them being Miss Marvel, I believe. So, yeah, we'll see. They could do something like that. Drax is not close to being enough for a solo movie. Yeah, I don't know. When I heard those comments from him, I was like, I don't know about that, bro. Like, I would just be super pumped to just keep doing these Guardians movies. Like, technically, even Star-Lord doesn't get a solo movie. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just think he's thinking about it the wrong way. But, whatever. Let's see here. From Lawrence T. Do you think what Jonathan Hickman is doing is going to be a reference point for future cinematic adaptations? I hope so, because in my opinion, it's stellar. Yeah, so here's the thing. At the beginning of this video, I don't know if you came in late or if you watched the whole thing, but at the beginning of this video, I recommend you guys watch the replay. I talked about the things that Hickman's X-Men does so well that can be brought into the MCU. These bedrock things that he touches on that are familiar but new in the way he attacks them. Beautiful stuff. Now, as far as the plot points themselves, can we bring some of this in? Maybe. This would be a lot to throw at people right away. I mean, Hickman books are so cerebral and so heady and so hard to follow. Like, Ryan and I were talking about this because we want to do a video explaining and breaking down what's going on. It's literally so complicated that we're like, bro, I don't know about this. Like, I literally don't even know exactly what's happening. I will say that the last couple books were so successful because the way they're utilizing Moira and the twist with Moira is so cool. It's so cool. This is what I was trying to say without spoiling stuff. And I guess I'll get into slight spoilers here for a second. So if you haven't read any of this stuff and you don't want spoiled, you guys might want to just turn off for a second. So there's a character named Moira Mactaggert. She has been in the X-Men books for a long, long time. She was always seen as a human ally to the X-Men, okay? And then you realize that she's actually a mutant. And not just a mutant, an incredibly powerful mutant. And she has the ability of resurrection. And all these different lives that she's living, she keeps coming back to the same point where she's born. And look, here's the honest-to-God truth. I'm actually not even sure that this is what they're doing, but this is my perception of it. Moira, all of Moira's lives, like all these different things that are happening in her different lives, that when she resets, it's going back to one singular point. And it's like time travel, but like the end game version of time travel, where like all those different things do not actually affect the main timeline, but they are real and they are happening. And so one of the last, he breaks down the story in like 10 years from this one point, 100 years in the future, and 1,000 years into the future. And one of the things that's crazy is you're watching this moment 100 years into the future, right? I believe. And then all of a sudden, Moira, they like unfreeze her from like carbonite, kind of. And she's been in hibernation for 100 years. And so in one of her lives, like what Professor X is doing is using her power to gain knowledge from all of these different events way in the future. And it was this moment where she comes up and you're like, "Oh my God." And they get this info, this really important intel that Moira just learns because she always goes back to that A point. And so when they freeze her, they just let time go the way that it would. And then they unfreeze her at this one moment in time. And it's Logan, of course, because Logan's immortal. You know what I mean? And so, like, the immortal X-Men and Moira's power, like, the way he's using these powers to tell this story is so freaking interesting. It's so freaking interesting. No, see, Mom. Yeah, get me pizza. Yeah. I might make like a little like link or whatever, like the weekly pizza fund, and people can, shout, put money into the fund or whatever. I don't know. At this point, it's like becoming a meme. But yeah, I'm super excited. So to answer your question, yes, I do think there's a chance that we bring some of these things in, but at their baseline, like I would just if I was Marvel and I was Feige, I would deconstruct why this is being so successful. Why is this working so well? And it's because he's laying it upon the same architecture that the X-Men books have always been laid upon. He's using the same beautiful, like, tried and true methods of telling these X-Men stories, and he's putting like his Jonathan Hickman twist on it. But at the end of the day, like, dude, there's these scenes where Magneto and Xavier decide to actually work together and their chemistry together in that scene, like, dude, it's just like beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. So, yeah. Let's see here. The High Evolutionary in John Byrne comics dealt heavily with the Scarlet Witch. Oh, yeah? Tell me which books, actually, because I actually don't remember that too much, but I'd love to go back and read it. Let's see here. Joshua Munn says, so Wolverine, his brother, Sabretooth, Maverick, and other experiments like Nuke and John Walker, U.S. agent, etc., begin working for the CIA doing missions leading to James Howlett joining Alpha Fight. Hey, look, dude, that's a great way to do it. Like, there's a great way to do it in which all of a sudden because we already have a name for him, right? Enhanced, right? But all of a sudden, I think that at the end of the day, you do need a catalyst. You need a catalyst for the X-Men to be viewed negatively. You need a catalyst for mutants to be viewed negatively. So if they do a thing where, yeah, all of a sudden, hey, we understand this mutation is happening. Maybe it's been around for a long time. Like, the beautiful thing about Logan is he has been around this whole time, unless he's born later, right? Unless the MCU version of Logan is born later. But I don't know if they should do that, right? So Logan's been around for a long time. But all of a sudden, the mutant problem is accelerating. And I think it's beautiful. You tie it right into the Infinity Stone thing. But yeah, you need, like, basically, like, you need, like, 13-year-old mutants to be mad at school and get really angry and do something horrible. You know what I mean? And then the world's like, oh, crap. Or you need really upset people at, like, some kind of rally protesting something, and all of a sudden their mutation kicks in and they accidentally torch, like, a ton of people. You know what I mean? A lot of cool stuff like that. Lawrence, I see you said the speech that Xavier gives to Scott is so good it gave me chills. It gave me chills too, but for a different reason, I think. I was like, dude, I do not like that mask of Xavier. There's something really creepy and not okay about that dude. And when I was reading that speech, dude, I felt like Scott was being manipulated, dude. Like, I was like, oof, that is rough. That is rough. All people that were snapped come back as potential mutants, have some power randomly activate. The Avengers team has to deal with it. Sets up Avengers versus X-Men /mutants. Yeah, totally. It's a totally beautiful way to go about it. You know what I mean? Bring it in. And, yeah, have it play a very, very important role. Mutants should be born that way. Otherwise, the whole premise is lost between superhumans and mutants. Yeah, I agree. But I think that there has to be something that's... it depends on how they do it, but there has to be something that's accelerating the mutant problem. Or is it just this time where now all of a sudden all these mutants are popping up? Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it doesn't hurt the phenomenon that was accelerated by the Infinity Stones. Like, something there is accelerated the mutant gene phenomenon. I don't think that's bad. I mean, you guys let me know what you think about that. But, yeah, I don't think that's bad at all. Hey, let me ask you guys this too, just because I'm curious, and we're just going super cash here on Friday. You guys watch Legion at all? Oh, okay, so it was that kind of show. I see. Ooh, good question. Ultimate Alliance or Smash Bros? I mean, it's Smash Bros all day, dude. Smash Bros is just a better game. But I had a blast playing through Ultimate Alliance 3, and there's free DLC today. So I'm gonna pick up that free DLC, and yeah, I'm gonna play a little bit more, man. When the stuff comes out, the DLC, I guess. Yeah, I'm gonna download it. Ultimate Alliance is a really fun game. If you guys haven't played. I see some Legion love in the chat. Yeah, Legion is incredible. If you haven't seen the end of Legion, I was thinking to myself, dude, the end of Legion is a perfect ending. It is a perfect ending, particularly that last episode. Fight your Marth, dude. I'll totally fight your Marth. We'll do some streaming. We'll do some streaming of Smash soon. But this Sunday, our big Twitch stream it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be Justin and myself. We're gonna do a Star Wars Sunday stream. Talk about all the Darth Ray stuff, all the rumors and craziness of this week. We're going to talk some serious Star Wars, and then we're going to go right into a stream of Battlefront 2 on Twitch, and it's going to be dope. Dope. I think we'll start at 1 o'clock on Sunday. That's what I'm aiming for. Around 1 o'clock, we'll start the Star Wars stream, and then pretty much by 2 o'clock, we'll go into the Battlefront stream. And we'll probably end that around 4 or 5. Morgan Freeman as Professor X. Nah. I mean, he could. I'm not saying he couldn't do it, but nah. You know what's really tough? This is something that Marvel has to figure out. And thank you for the super chat, Justin. I appreciate it. They've perfectly cast Charles and Eric twice. Both sets that they cast in the X-Men movies at Fox, both of those sets were perfect casting. That's a tough problem. If you're Marvel, you better really find the right people for that. You know what I mean? Like, that is so important. And I think that it's crazy how much Fox nailed those characters both times. I think it would be amazing. But yeah, no, I don't like Morgan Freeman as Professor X personally. And by the way, I've never seen Morgan Freeman bald. Have you? I wanted more Xavier, David, and the Shadow King, Lawrence says. Dude, that ending is perfect. That ending is perfect. And the way they handle the Charles, by the way, Professor X plays a big role in the finale of Legion. David is actually Professor X's son. And that's the way that it is in the comics. But that ending is perfect. Talk about using mutant powers effectively as storytelling devices. That's why I'd love to see some Noah Hawley. Picture this, guys. Literally, House of X, Power of X, this big story that Hickman's doing, literally told on a show by Noah Hawley. Mind-blowing stuff. That would blow my freaking mind. Let's see here. Xavier was hiding mutants from the world. He got snapped by Thanos, so he obviously couldn't continue to do so. That's how people found out. Once he snapped away, mutants started showing up. Thoughts? I love it. Mike, I love it. I think that would be incredible. And I really like that. I really, really like all of the different threads coming together. Schuler Allen says X-Men should be introduced at the end of Fantastic Four film with an extended end credit scene. Reed Richards is meeting with Banner and Doctor Strange, talking science and magic, and Xavier wheels in. That would be really cool. I'd like that. I would definitely like that. That would be really cool. Man, it sucks that Michael Fassbender won't be Magneto anymore. He's always been one of my favorite actors all the way back to Inglourious Basterds. Yeah, he's great. He's a great actor. That's what I mean. That's actually that's probably one of the toughest things. And I'm sure that they will spend a lot of time casting that properly. But yeah, Skylar, gotcha. That's going to be very important for them to nail. That would be very, very tough. And yeah, that would be tough. So what if Logan is secretly in Black Widow and it's revealed in a post-credit scene in a Wolverine movie that flashes back the Weapon X program? It's possible. It's possible. I think the way they use Logan, I'm just really hoping they use Logan really successfully. There's a lot of cool stuff that they can do with him. But yeah, that's going to be clutch as well. The entire X-Men, casting the X-Men is going to be very challenging. Scarlet Witch can create the House of M storyline, and you can bring in the X-Men that way too. Totally. You can totally do that. Harry Lloyd, the same guy from Legion. Yeah, I mean, he could work. I really thought he was very successful at portraying that character in the show. Fassbender would be a great Doom, Ryan says. I totally agree. Fassbender would be an incredible Doom. I hope Hawkeye and Ant-Man and the Wasp make an appearance at Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Yeah, that'd be really cool. I don't think we've seen the last of Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's just tough. Like, it's not so much that those movies aren't successful. It's just that, like, it's a starting five situation. Like, Ant-Man and Wasp might be, like, a great bench player, but, like, if you only have 5 slots, your starting 5 is not going to include Ant-Man and the Wasp. You know what I mean? That's pretty much where we're at. It's like an embarrassment of riches with the MCU. But, yeah. Yeah, Tyler says, I definitely think WandaVision will out Wanda as a mutant. She could have a huge outlash so people fear her like in Civil War. Totally. I think they've already been kind of setting that up. And maybe even Feige put those characters in hoping that someday he would get the mutants back, and like that would be his way to do it. You know what I mean? Me, Moon Knight? Oh man. I don't have the time. The channel would fall apart. But maybe I would do it. Give me a call, Marvel. Keanu Reeves as a mutant? He could work as a mutant. He could definitely work as a mutant. I don't know which one, but yeah, he could work. You know, he would be a great, maybe Forge. That's just what popped into my head. What do you think about that, Forge? Yeah, the Tyler Diggins says, they better find a way to make these characters have a history. I'd rather than bring them from an alternate timeline than see baby Logan or Charles. I'm sure these are the discussions they are having at Marvel right now. I'm sure this is what they're trying to figure out. I actually think Keanu could be a Professor X as well, but I do like the British accent with Professor X. I love how they're both European. Both he and Magneto. It would be cool to see Franklin Richards mix it up with Nathaniel Gray. Yeah, that would be dope. And the thing is, I think that's maybe you're onto something there. Maybe Franklin Richards is the key because Franklin Richards is a mutant. And he's the most Omega of Omega level mutants. Like, this kid is ridiculously strong. So, you know, the Fantastic Four are not mutants. They get their powers from the cosmic rays, right? But then they have this kid. Kid happens to be a mutant, happens to be so freaking powerful. So I'd really like that. You know what I mean? I think that could be a good catalyst to go from Fantastic Four to X-Men. You know what I mean? That would be very interesting. Is World War II too big of a deal in Magneto's past? Will the timeline be too weird with the MCU being in 2023? I mean, yeah, that is a big problem. That is something they're probably talking about behind the scenes, man. So yeah, it could be. I mean, what if they did a newer version? So here's oh baby. Oh baby, I might have just had a great idea, everybody. Lean in. Get a little closer to your smartphone. I might have just had a brilliant idea. No scripts. Get this out of my face. What if the Dark Avengers... That's right, I said it. Take your shot. What if the Dark Avengers is the way they go in Phase 4, and by the end of Phase 4, we have basically nefarious, controlling, bad propaganda, army-type things going on with the Dark Avengers and all enhanced people, including particularly mutants, and the fact that mutants are the biggest kind of threat at the time, what if under the Dark Avengers regime, humanity okays some modern day sort of concentration camp things, much like in when Pearl Harbor happened, and we had those in whatever those camps were called, where we would put Japanese American citizens in. What if there's something like that happens? Almost a new version of the concentration camps done under and because of the fear of the enhanced and the changes to the world and all the fear, right? So the Sokovia Accords 2.0 under the Dark Avengers, and whether it's Justin Hammer, Norman Osborn, or the Mandarin, these characters, because they're humans, right? All those people I just mentioned are humans. They start locking up mutants. And what if that's the internment camps? What if that is where the new Magneto comes from? You know what I mean? Wouldn't that be interesting? Because if you think about it, isn't that kind of what Baron Strucker did to the twins? Doesn't that reek of a Nazi sort of... And the fact that, whoa, think about this, too. Think about this. This is fresh stuff. Are you guys taking notes? This is hot stuff. What if Hydra, and the fact that Hydra is sort of the modern version of the Nazis, and they come from the Nazi party, what if Hydra is responsible and was already responsible for Magneto's suffering? Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Yo, C-Mob, you're onto something there. Somebody get Josh a Dark Avengers poster, please. Guys, someone please get me a Dark Avengers poster so that I can put it somewhere in the studio on the walls. Yes, please. Yes, please. I am a fan of that. I am a fan of that, man. Avengers vs. X-Men possible in the MCU? Joe says, yes, I say so. As long as Hydra doesn't come back. Hydra never left. Hydra is always going to be around. Like, that's a comic book thing. You should want Hydra to stay around, Bastion, in my opinion. Because Hydra should always be that looming thing, and there'll be something going on, and then you'll be like, oh, it's connected to Hydra. Like, for instance, like, there's bad shipments coming in at the docks, and your Avenger goes down there, whoever it is, goes down there to check it out, or your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Oh, God, no. R.I.P. MCU Spider-Man. But anyways, the hero goes down to the docks. Oh, and he discovers that it's Hydra. Dun, dun, dun. It's bigger than just some mob type thing. It's connected to Hydra. Holy crap! Holy crap! That's the kind of thing that, like, Hydra's useful as a plot device. Too many heads growing back. Ray and Dark Ray. And Josh and Angry Josh. I can't do that fan casting, man. Namor could be introduced. That's a mutant in Black Panther 2. That's actually a really good point. And there were talks, false sense of security, that even Storm was going to be introduced in that. So perhaps we're going that way. Perhaps the mutants are going to start being introduced in that way. Yeah, I want the Red Skull back real bad. Particularly after he gets the knowledge from the Infinity Stones. I want the Red Skull back real bad. Personally. Can I punch Chewbacca? Absolutely not, dude. Chewbacca is my boy. All right, guys, I'm going to get out of here. I want to remind everybody before we get out of here, guys, please come back this Sunday where we will be doing an amazing live stream and some Twitch streaming. We're going to live stream about Star Wars, talk all about that, and then we'll go into a Twitch stream. Also, if you have not joined the Patreon, or if you're on the fence about the Patreon, this Monday will be the first Monday of the month. The first Monday of the month, we always do our really big Patreon-exclusive live stream. I'm going to be talking with the Patreons about some stuff that I can't talk publicly about. It's like secret, behind-the-scenes type stuff. If you want to be a part of that, this is a very good time to join the Patreon. Go check out the Patreon. We've got almost 40 Patreons. We're closing in on, let's see here. We're closing in. We've got over 400 on our way to 500 a month. Patreon has been freaking awesome. I'm working on some sweet vlogs, business vlogs that'll be dropping on there for certain tiers as well. So I recommend, guys, if you're a big fan of the channel, I hear people all the time. They're like, how do I support the channel? How can I support you? Go check out the Patreon. And if you jump on before Monday night, you will be able to come check out the Patreon exclusive live stream. And of course, if you can't join the Patreon, no worries. I understand. Some people got loot. Some people don't got loot. Sometimes people's got loot, and then all of a sudden they don't got loot. It's not a big deal. You can always support us by liking, sharing, and doing all of that good stuff. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, guys. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching this on the replay, definitely make sure to put your thoughts about this in the comment section below. By the way, if you're looking for like us to break down, Ryan and I are going to work on that video. We're going to do that video where we're going to break down what is going on with the Jonathan Hickman X-Men stuff. It's all amazing. And we'll keep an eye on it because I think some of it might be farmed for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. All right, guys. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.